Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are cracking open the master vault on a skill that dictates the absolute ceiling of your career, your relationships, and your peace of mind. Think about it for a second. What happens to your life when everything is on the line? What happens when a project falls completely off the rails? A major business partnership is on the verge of collapsing, or a deep personal relationship hits a massive wall of emotional tension? Most people handle these high-stress moments in one of two catastrophic ways. They either blow up in a fit of defensive anger, or they completely freeze up, shut down, and hide behind an icy wall of silence. We are diving deep into a massive, immersive story breakdown of the international masterpiece, Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High, by Kerry, Patterson, Joseph Grenny, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzler. This video is your ultimate psychological playbook for navigating the most difficult, stressful, and emotionally charged conversations of your life without losing your cool, ruining your reputation, or destroying your bonds with the people who matter most. The core premise of this masterpiece is deceptively simple, yet completely life-altering. The quality of your entire life does not depend on how smoothly things go when everyone agrees with you. It depends entirely on how you behave during the 20 minutes when opinions vary, stakes are incredibly high, and emotions run deep. Get comfortable, grab a fresh notebook, eliminate all distractions, and let us discover how to master the unspoken laws of high-stakes dialogue and transform your communication into a source of absolute influence and safety. Part 1. The Anatomy of a High-Stakes Crisis. Let us start our story by identifying what a crucial conversation actually looks like in the real world. Imagine you are working at a fast-growing company. You and your team have spent 3 grueling months preparing a massive strategy pitch for a high-profile client. 5 minutes before the presentation begins, your boss walks into the conference room and calmly announces that he is taking your name off the cover slide and will be delivering the entire opening monologue himself, taking full credit for your hard work. In an instant, your heart rate spikes to 140 beats per minute. Your face flushes red, your stomach knots up, and your brain is suddenly flooded with a chemical cocktail of adrenaline and cortisol. This is a crucial conversation. The authors define it using 3 distinct, highly predictable criteria. First, opinions vary wildly between the people involved. Second, the stakes are incredibly high, meaning a mistake will cost you money, status, or a vital connection. Third, emotions are deeply intense. Why do we consistently fail when these 3 conditions are met? The answer lies in our evolutionary biology. When you perceive a social threat, your primitive amygdala doesn't know the difference between a boss stealing your corporate credit and a hungry predator cornering you on the prehistoric savanna. It immediately cuts off the blood supply to your highly analytical prefrontal cortex and diverts all that vital energy to your limbs so you can fight or run. In short, at the exact microsecond you need your brain the most, your biology leaves you with the cognitive capacity of a caveman. To win the room, you must learn how to override this biological hijack and maintain total psychological command. Part 2. The Myth of the Fool's Choice. Now that we know why our brains fail us under intense pressure, let us look at the massive mental trap. that keeps millions of people enslaved to toxic communication loops. The authors call this phenomenon the fool's choice. When an untrained communicator experiences a high-stakes disagreement, their brain tells them a dangerous lie. It says, "You only have two choices here. You can either speak up, tell the brutal truth, offend the other person, and destroy the relationship, or you can stay completely quiet, suffer in silence, preserve the peace, and let them walk all over you." This is a completely false dichotomy. Choosing between honesty and kindness, or between achieving results and keeping a relationship healthy, is the ultimate hallmark of low-level emotional intelligence. The true masters of dialogue completely reject the fool's choice. They ask an entirely different, incredibly empowering question inside their minds. How can I be 100% candid with this person while simultaneously making them feel 100% safe? This question forces your brain to step out of survival mode and find a creative communication path that honors both the hard truths of the situation and the mutual respect of the connection. You stop treating the conversation as a zero-sum war, where one person must lose for the other to win. You start treating it as a collaborative puzzle, where the goal is to expand the shared pool of meaning. Part 3. The foundation of the pool of shared meaning. To understand how elite communicators achieve this balance, we must analyze the central metaphor of the entire book, the pool of shared meaning. Imagine that every single individual walks into a room carrying their own private pool of thoughts, feelings, memories, experiences, and theories about the world. When a group of people attempts to make a high-stakes decision, the ultimate quality of that decision depends entirely on how much accurate information they can get into a single, open, shared pool. If team members are terrified of their manager, they will withhold their true opinions, hide critical errors, and nod their heads mechanically to preserve their job security. The shared pool remains completely empty, leading to terrible choices, failed products, and broken cultures. When you master the tools of a crucial conversation, your primary objective is never down the throat of the listener. Your objective is to make it absolutely safe for everyone to contribute their piece of the truth to the shared pool without fear of retaliation, judgment, or marginalization. Even if an idea is controversial, messy, or highly critical, it must be allowed into the open pool. When people feel that their thoughts are valued and safely held, their defensive barriers dissolve completely. They stop fighting to protect their ego and start collaborating to find the best possible path forward for the entire organization. Part 4. Start with heart and master your true motives. How do you keep yourself anchored in this collaborative state when someone actively attacks your ideas or questions your competence? The authors reveal that the very first step of any masterclass communication strategy does not involve what you say with your mouth. It begins with what you think inside your heart. You must start with heart. When a conversation starts getting tense, your focus naturally shifts away from your original goals and locks onto self-protection. You want to win the argument, punish the other person, make them look stupid, or avoid a conflict at all costs. The moment your inner motive changes from collaboration to retaliation, your body language, your vocal tone, and your words will instantly broadcast that hostility, destroying all psychological safety. To prevent this internal drift, you must learn to pause the interaction and ask yourself 3 critical, grounding questions. What do I truly want for myself out of this interaction? What do I truly want for the other person? What do I truly want for the relationship? Once you clarify those goals, ask the ultimate behavioral question. How would I behave right now if I actually wanted those exact results? By forcing your mind to answer these questions, you instantly drag your brain out of its primitive survival loop and reactivate your prefrontal cortex. You remind yourself that winning a superficial verbal shouting match is completely useless if it leaves you with a broken partnership or a ruined connection. You realign your inner intentions with high-status maturity, allowing you to speak with calm, measured, and highly strategic authority. Part 5. Learn to look for the dual elements of safety. Once you have mastered your internal motives, you must develop a rare behavioral skill known as dual processing. Most people only process the content of a conversation, meaning they focus entirely on the literal words, data points, and arguments being thrown back and forth. Elite communicators watch the content, but they pay even closer attention to the condition of the safety dynamic. The book warns that when a conversation, it is almost never because of the content of your message. It is because the listener no longer feels safe. You can tell a direct report that their recent performance fell 30% below target, and if they feel completely safe, they will thank you for the feedback and work harder. Conversely, if they feel unsafe, even a casual compliment like, "You sure dressed up today," can be interpreted as a sarcastic insult. To master the safety dynamic, you must learn to look for the exact moments when people step out of healthy dialogue. They will always swing toward one of 2 toxic directions: silence or violence. Silence involves purposefully withholding information from the shared pool. It shows up as masking, where people understate their true thoughts using sarcasm or sugar-coated language. It shows up as avoiding, where they steer completely away from sensitive topics. And it shows up as withdrawing, where they mentally or physically exit the conversation entirely. Violence involves attempting to force meaning into the shared pool through raw power. It shows up as controlling, where people cut others off, overstate their case, or speak in absolute terms. It shows up as labeling, where they call people names or dismiss their entire character based on a single point. And it shows up as attacking, where they use aggressive threats, insults, and heavy-handed browbeating to make others suffer. The moment you spot even a tiny flash of silence or violence, you must stop talking about the business issue immediately. Step out of the content, fix the safety dynamic first, and only return to the issue when stability is fully restored. Part 6. How to rebuild safety using a contrast message. How exactly do you rebuild psychological safety when someone has already entered an intense state of anger or defensive withdrawal? The authors hand us a magnificent, bulletproof verbal tool known as the contrasting statement. When safety breaks down, it is usually because the other person believes you have a malicious intent. They assume you are trying to insult them, minimize their value, or take away their authority. A contrasting statement is a two-part verbal tool that immediately corrects this misunderstanding by addressing what you do not mean versus what you actually do mean. The first part of the statement must explicitly address their worst-case fear and push it away. The second part must clarify your true, respectable purpose. Imagine a scenario where you have to tell your partner that you want to manage the household finances separately this year. They instantly get defensive, assume you think they are irresponsible, and say, "You don't trust me with money." You immediately deploy a contrasting statement. I do not mean to imply that you are irresponsible or that I don't trust your financial judgment. What I do mean is that I want to see if we can reduce our collective stress levels by creating an automated system where our personal bills are managed out of separate accounts while our main goals stay completely aligned. Notice the flawless architecture of this message. You didn't apologize for your goals or back down on your boundaries. Instead, you took the emotional sting out of the issue by protecting their dignity. By actively dismantling their worst-case assumptions, you give their nervous system a chance to relax, bringing them right back into a state of calm, rational conversation. Part 7. Master your stories and control your inner drama. Let us shift our focus inward to look at how we create our own emotional chaos during a high-stakes interaction. Have you ever noticed how fast you can go from seeing a simple action to feeling a massive wave of intense rage or hurt? The authors explain that emotions do not just land on you out of nowhere. You create your own feelings through a highly specific cognitive sequence called the path to action. The path follows 4 distinct steps. First, you see or hear an objective fact. Second, your brain immediately tells a story about that fact, interpreting what it means. Third, based entirely on that story, you feel an emotion. Fourth, driven by that emotion, you act. The problem is that we are incredibly fast at writing toxic, unverified stories inside our heads. The authors identify 3 specific types of clever stories that our ego creates to justify our worst behaviors. The first is the victim's story. This is where you tell yourself, "This is completely unfair. I am a pure, innocent victim, and I did absolutely nothing to cause this problem." This story conveniently relieves you of any personal responsibility to fix the issue. The second is the villain's story. This is where you blow the other person's flows completely out of proportion, assuming they are evil, greedy, or malicious. You say, "They are doing this purely to ruin my career." This story justifies your decision to attack them or treat them with cold hostility. The third is the helpless story. This is where you convince yourself that there is absolutely nothing you can do to change the situation, saying, "There is no point in talking to him. He will never change." To master your path to action, you must have the courage to slow down and analyze your stories. Separate the raw, objective facts from the subjective fiction you invented. Transform your victim story by asking, "What am I pretending not to notice about my own role in this problem?" Transform your villain story by asking, "Why would a reasonable, rational, and decent person Choose to behave this way. When you challenge your inner script, you take absolute command of your emotional state, stepping into the conversation not as a reactive victim, but as a balanced, high-status leader. Part 8. The Roadmap to Unshakable Leadership Conversations. As our epic journey through the psychology of crucial conversations reaches its grand conclusion, remember this definitive truth. High-stakes communication is not about winning an argument or forcing people to agree with your worldview. True mastery is the disciplined cultivation of absolute safety, radical candor, and deep emotional intelligence in moments when the world around you is falling into chaos. Stop letting your primitive biological programming force you into the toxic corners of silence or violence. Stop settling for the fool's choice. Stop hiding from the hard truths. And stop letting unverified inner stories run your emotional life. Step into your authentic, personal power today. Walk into every difficult meeting by starting with heart and clarifying your true motives. Watch the safety levels of the room with a dual processing mind. Rebuild trust instantly using the magic of contrasting statements, and expand the pool of shared meaning by holding space for everyone's piece of the puzzle. When you master these unwritten laws of high-stakes dialogue, you transform yourself from a simple talker into an elite behavioral anchor who can steady any ship. The walls of professional friction and corporate resistance will dissolve completely before your presence. You will command premium authority in your executive career. Protect the deep emotional health of your family bonds. Build a culture of absolute alignment and trust, and unlock a life of immense human influence, prosperity, and lasting global impact. What is the #1 high-stakes communication tool from this dialogue blueprint? Whether it is identifying your own silence and violence patterns, or utilizing a contrasting statement that you are going to commit to practicing during your very next difficult conversation this week? Let me know your communication breakthroughs in the comments down below. If this deep dive summary completely re-engineered your approach to social conflict and handed you a bulletproof architectural playbook for unshakable presence when stakes are high, show some immense love by clicking that like button. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another profound leadership, psychology, or business book breakdown. And share this video with someone you love who deserves to break free from communication anxiety today. Master your stories, protect the safety of the room, speak your absolute truth, and I will see you in the next video.